When you get hold of the Nintendo Entertainment System, when you master R.O.B, the video robot, and meet the challenge of Gyromite, when you shoot the light-sensing Zapper, when you play the system with so many arcade hits, you're playing with power. The Nintendo Entertainment System Deluxe Set. Batteries not included, Super Mario Brothers, and other games sold separately.
Hey, hello, I'm Kråkan, also known as Corvus Cornix, and welcome to Yacc, yet another Crowcast where I pick a game I played for a week and then I'll talk about it. So this week is different. I'm gonna talk about NES Accessories, so there will be spoilers because I'm not really covering any games, I'm just talking about the accessories themselves. But first, a little backstory. So at the beginning of this week, I actually couldn't play any games because one of my nieces was staying at my mom's house and she wanted to watch TV through her laptop. And I got some TV cables, and that's the reason I couldn't play any games, because I didn't have any cables at all. So it took a little turn there, and I was like thinking, what can I do instead of playing a game? Because I obviously couldn't. So what about accessories for Nintendo 8-bit? So before I start to talk about the accessories themselves, I need to talk about Nintendo as a company. So at the beginning of Nintendo's career, they made playing cards and eventually moved on to toys and later video games. So they're no strangers to making plastic accessories to their games. And there's a lot of cool things on YouTube you can check out. There's like this gripping hand that they made. I think they market it as a toy, but it's really just one of those things that a lazy adult, pick up things from the ground kind of thing.
1 Zulu Niner pre-flight check.
Roger, Tower.
Turbo A.
That's a go.
Turbo B.
Check.
Cycloid control.
A-OK.
Rapid fire.
All right, let's fire it up.
The NES Max, only from Nintendo.
So the first accessory that I'll be talking about is the Nintendo Max controller. It was released in 1988 by Nintendo, and it's a U-shaped controller with some good grips. It has 2 turbo buttons, and it doesn't have a D-pad, it has a circle pad. So instead of the D-pad thing, you have the circle thing that moves around, and it's not very precise. I actually had this as a kid because me and my brother wanted to play games together on a Nintendo 8-bit console, so mom got this controller, or dad. But it's some people swear by this because I don't know why, but I don't like it. As a kid, I didn't.
Some guys like to just play around. Other guys want to rock and roll, and the Nintendo Advantage controller is the perfect instrument for all you rockers. The choice is all yours. Get the Advantage, only from Nintendo.
Next up is the Nintendo Advantage. It was released in 1987 by Nintendo, and it's like a joystick with some buttons. It has, as I said, a joystick, a couple of turbo buttons, and the A and B button is actually bigger. And it's more suited for arcade games. It would be cool to actually have this controller as a kid because it's a little bit different. And it also have this slow motion button, and the way that it works is it pauses the game, and it's set to like not a button but like a switch thing, so you can control the slow motion things. And for some games it's actually really good, while other games it doesn't really work that well. So next up is the NES controller Dogbone. It was released in 1993 by Nintendo, and the reason it's called a Dogbone, it looks like a bone, like a dog bone. It has the shape and grip of like a Super Nintendo controller, and it was shipped with the NES top loader model. The only thing that people might have a problem with this controller is that some of the buttons feel a little bit weird, and the cord from the controller to the console itself is very short. Next up is the Nintendo 4-Score. It was released in 1990 by Nintendo, and the way that it works is you can play 4 players on the Nintendo. So it plugs into the front port takes up 2 controller spaces, and it has a turbo function as well. And the game that support this is Super Off-Road, Monopoly, Monster Truck, and Nintendo World Cup, and a couple of others. I think also A Nightmare on Elm Street.
Will you be the one to witness the birth of the incredible Nintendo Entertainment System? The one to play with R.O.B, the extraordinary video robot, batteries not included. He helps you tackle even the toughest challenge. Will you be the first to raise the incredibly accurate Zapper and play games like Duck Hunt or action-packed Hogan's Alley and high-flying Kung Fu, each sold separately? Will you be the one to experience the Nintendo Entertainment System? Comes with R.O.B, Zapper, Control Deck, 2 controllers, Gyromite, and Duck Hunt.
So next up is R.O.B the Robot, released in 1985 by Nintendo, and R.O.B stands for Robotic Operating Body. And it's basically a robotic toy that helps you, assists you in a couple of games that I know of called Gyromite and Stack Up. So R.O.B was part of the deluxe set. It came with a base unit, 2 controllers, a Zapper, R.O.B himself, and 2 games, Gyromite and Duck Hunt. So R.O.B runs on 4 AA batteries, but most people know this character from Smash Bros, I believe, because there he was actually a playable character. Also to note about R.O.B, he is very slow, so you might as well just play this with someone else pushing a button instead of him. So next up is the Zapper. It was released in 1985 and it came in 2 colors, gray and orange. And it's basically a light gun that makes you shoot stuff on the screen. So it also came with a deluxe set, but in 1989 it got a redesign to the orange one because apparently there are gun laws in the US that prevents toys from looking like real guns. So Nintendo went the whole safe route. Instead of putting like a plastic orange thing at the top of the gun, they made the whole gun mostly orange. So the Zapper plugs into the second controller. You can play a couple of games on it, mainly Duck Hunt, Hogan's Alley, Gumshoe, Wild Arms, and the Adventures of Bio Billy.
The Power Glove for your Nintendo Entertainment System. Now you and the games are one. Everything else is child's play.
So next up is the Power Glove. It was released in 1989, and if you've seen the movie The Wizard, you know exactly what it looks like. It's basically a glove that you put on your hand and it works as a controller, so you move your hands and fingers to do different button inputs. You can also take off the glove and use the controller on it to play just as a normal controller. So next up is the Power Pad. It was released in 1988 by Bandai. And it's basically an exercise mat that works as a controller. So you step on these spots on the mat to do button inputs. And it came with the power set. So this is basically like the deluxe set, but instead of R.O.B, you got the Power Pad instead.
You cast them aside, exiled to the closet. You thought the challenge was gone. You were wrong. Rescue them. Get your old video games out of the closet and play them like new with Game Genie. Game Genie lets you change levels, jump higher, punch harder, live forever. Uncover the new power in most of your old video games with Game Genie. Excellent! For your Nintendo Entertainment System, Game Genie from Galoob.
So the last device I'll talk about today is the Game Genie. It was released in 1990, made by Codemaster, but licensed to Galoob in the US and in Canada to Camerica. So the way that this device works is you plug in your Nintendo game into it and then into the console itself, and it makes you manipulate values in-game to do sheets, like more lives, more money and whatnot. And usually the sheets were in magazines or small booklets, which now you probably will find on the internet. So there was a funny thing about the whole... Nintendo didn't like that people were modifying their games, but technically you own the games. So they called it a video game enhancer instead of a sheet device, and it's kind of ridiculous because it's just a game and you owned it already, so why make such a big deal out of it? So I'm just gonna wrap up right here. It was a fun thing to do something different. I know there are a lot more accessories to the Nintendo console itself, but as I said, it was fun to do something different. And I went online, looked up all these things about these accessories. I watched a lot of YouTube videos. I even put in some sound clips in the episode. So it's a little bit more editing, but at least I had fun. So maybe I'll do a part 2 in the future, who knows? So anyway, thanks for listening and for watching, and take care.